Now, when you think jitterbug, what comes to mind? Well, I guess it all kind of depends on who you ask. We're not talking about the cell phone with buttons the size of your palm or the song by Wham, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, a jitterbug. No, we're not talking about that, or we're not talking about the dance craze from the 1930s, although we are talking about a lure that did come from the 1930s that will make bass dance, and that is none other than the Arbogast Jitterbug. Now stick around, we're gonna learn the history of this dancing little lure from back in the day, and we're gonna put it out on the water and see if we catch some fish. Now, I will tell you, this thing shines a whole lot better in early morning and evening, and I did the right thing by fishing it during a heat wave during the middle of the day, so I'm sure that'll be fine. But we've got a couple different ones tied up. We'll show you what we're working with, and let's try to catch a fish. So, stay tuned. In the 1930s, Fred Arbogast produced a wooden surface lure to serve a somewhat limited category of topwater lures. This lure would compete with lures such as the creek chub injured minnow and fluger globe. Now that said, this did not come without trial and error. Now let's back up a few years. A friend of Fred Arbogast by the name of Brooke Ortell accounted from a conversation with Fred that he was working on a deep diving lure in the 1920s to try to find larger suspending bass. Fred made this lure out of a broomstick, and he cut the head at a downward slant and attached a metal spoon across. However, this did not work. It would sink. It had erratic action, jumped out of the water, difficult to cast, amongst other things. Now, fast forwarding back to 1934, Brooke was visiting Arbogast and found the diving lure in a drawer. He asked Fred, "What is this?" And Fred simply said, it was an underwater bait that didn't work. Brooke and Fred then messed around with the design of the lure, essentially turning around the lip, and Brooke said, "Man, you've got a red-hot topwater bait here." The jitterbug was introduced in 1939 as a wooden surface lure for the cost of $1. Now think about this, folks. That's almost $23 in today's money. That's a very expensive investment for a lure. The initial lure weighed in at 5/8 ounce and was offered in 8 different colors. As a result of the popularity, in 1940, Fred offered an additional peanut size. This was 1 hook and 3/8 ounce. This option was available from 1940 to 45, and in 1941, they also came out with a 2-hook, 1.5 ounce musky option. It was also in 1941 that we see a plastic jitterbug body option in addition to the wood body. Fred liked the plastic option because it made the lure more consistent and helped relieve trying to outsource wood. And speaking of sourcing, another interesting fact is the metal lip of the jitterbug, as we know it today, was temporarily changed to plastic during World War II, roughly around 1944, due to metal rationing. Now, the problem with the plastic lip is that it had less action and did not stand up well to heat. Now, this was just a temporary solution till the metal became more available after the war. It was also around this time in 1946 that the 5/8 and 3/8 jitterbugs moved from wood bodies to plastic bodies. Now, the jitterbug has certainly stood the test of time and has been a tackle box staple for the past 9 decades. The great news is that you can still find the jitterbug on shelves today. Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, Tackle Warehouse, Amazon, just to name a few, and they come in 3 different sizes, 2-inch, 2.5, and 3-inch. But if you know me, you know what I'm going to tell you. You need to give new life to old lures. Find Grandpa's old tackle box, go to an estate sale, garage sale, and get these back on the water. The jitterbug is definitely an iconic and collectible lure. Whether you're going for the plastic lips of World War II or the Seaton's Believins from the early 1980s, this is a great lure to cast, collect, so pick one up and get those bass dancing. All right, before we toss this puppy on the water, I got to give some credits and thank yous. First, starting with David from Stumpjack Outdoors. Now, if you don't know the Stumpjack Outdoors Instagram page, well then just stop what you're doing. Pause the video, go over to your phone, boop, 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 type in Stumpjack Outdoors. I'm going to put all the information down below and give him a follow. It's my favorite Instagram page for multiple reasons. David has an incredible eye for photography, and not only are his posts just extremely visually appealing, but also there's some incredible lures that you don't see every day with a little bit of history mixed in, which is absolutely fantastic. Second, how I came across this with David is that I saw that he wrote an article on Bass Fishing Archives about the Fred Arbogast biography by Kevin Verdon. And so let's go back to Bass Fishing Archives for a second. You need to check that out as well too. Just an incredible site with everything related to bass fishing history. Lures, anglers, you name it, they've got it. Advertising. It's a fantastic page. Check that out. I'm gonna put that link down below as well too, of the article that David wrote a couple years ago. And then finally, the book by Kevin Verdon, the biography of Fred Arbogast. Chocked full of just incredible information, everything you want to know about the guy himself, but also the lures and everything. I mean, it's awesome. Now, if you don't know who Kevin Verdon is, I'll put another link down below and kind of show you his pseudo small library of books that he's written, not only about Arbogast, but other lure makers and vintage lures just in general. So check that stuff out. And before we get on the water as well, let's take a little deeper dive into this lure. You may not all be familiar with it, so we'll take a look at it over here at the table, and we'll do what I love to do, bring out a couple old school Bass Pro catalogs, and let's look at just a couple different years of variations and a couple innovations as well. So stay tuned for that. All right, for those of you that are not familiar with the Jitterbug, I want to just go ahead and take a little closer look at it for you so you can see it. So relatively unchanged. Now this is a vintage one that I found at an estate sale, probably in some tackle box with a lot of other lures, but this lure right here is going to be exactly like the one that you're going to find at Bass Pro Shop today. Now the only main difference that you're going to tell from the old school ones to today's is probably just going to be the writing on the lip here. Now this one says Jitterbug. I know there might be a little bit of a glare right there, and then it spells out Fred Arbogast. The newer ones likely just have the cursive Arbogast right across. But the lure is really exactly the same now as it was 20, 30, on and on and on years ago. Now, all the information I got about the Jitterbug came from the Kevin Verdon book, the biography of Fred Arbogast. And they talk about, kind of the humble beginnings of this being a deep diving lure. And I'm going to guess that it kind of is relatively unchanged other than the fact this is plastic. The original was obviously made out of a wooden broomstick, but we see how the lip is curved this way now. I'm going to say that the original one was curved the other way, so long ways like this. So if you were to look at it, this would be out here. And that's just my assumption. Arbogast expert would obviously be able to tell you a lot better than me, or maybe even be able to show pictures or renderings or things like that. But I'm assuming that this little tip came out this way, so the lip would come out like that to really get that deep diving motion. And then it makes sense that they flipped it upright like this and have it long ways, so then you have the top water, which gives it the erratic action that we're going to see here in just a little bit in the water. Now, we're going to show you a couple of things in my favorite catalogs right here, none other than the Bass Pro Shops. We're not going to get into every single one of them, but I wanted to show you a few different changes, innovations throughout the years in the 77, 78, and 1982 catalogs. So without further ado, let's jump into those real quick, and then come on, let's just get this thing on the water and catch some fish. All right, kicking things off here with the 1977 Bass Pro catalog, we've got two new innovations of the Jitterbug here for 77. The first one being the weedless Jitterbug, and I hope you guys can see that okay. I've turned down the lighting a little bit to prevent some of that glare. And you're looking at it, you're like, well, what's the difference? Well, right off the bat, we see one thing pretty noticeable. We've got a skirt on the end of it. Also, we have a two-hook design. It's not a treble hook, and it does not have the front hook that this one has. So as you can see, this can obviously get caught up in everything. And if you're rolling over cover or lily pads, things like that, this would, help out considerably. And look these up on eBay. I'm gonna tell you, they're not $1.49 anymore today. They're anywhere between $15 to, $70, $80 in some senses. Just, woof, astronomical what they want for those things. But that was a new thing for 1977. We also have the luminous Jitterbug right down there. So essentially, what does that mean? Well, that just means it's glow in the dark. And we'll pull this up here so you guys can see a little bit better too, try to get that glare out of there. But it claims to glow for hours and rechargeable within just a few minutes with a flashlight. So there you go. New for 1977, we've got the weedless Jitterbug and the luminous. Well, or glow in the dark. All right, we saw some new innovations for 1977, but for 1978, I wanted to show you a really nice page layout of all the different jitterbug options that was available for the time. So you see right here, we've got a full page jitterbug spread right here. And we've got 2 of the weedless options right here, and then we also have just your original 2-inch, 3-inch, and then your big mamma jamma right here, which is your 5-inch musky jitterbug. Now, I know we've got a little bit of glare here, folks, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this up so you guys can just see the offerings. Let's see if I can tilt that a little bit. Does that look better? I don't know. Maybe. Here we go. So do your best if you want to go ahead and screenshot that and just take a look. But this is what you would have seen on the shelves in 1978. We've got a couple different jitterbug variations. The original, the weedless, and then the large 5-inch, 1 1/4 ounce musky option for 1978. Now, moving on to 1982. This will be the last catalog that we'll go over, and then we'll finally get these on the water so you can see what the action looks like. Probably my favorite is the Seeins Believins from the early 80s right here. I love these. And they have these in the hula poppers, the jitterbugs. The mudbugs had something a little bit different. They had kind of the lifelike belly. But what's really cool about these topwater, and man, I wish that glare would go away. Here we go. That's a little better for you. Nice. I think we're beating the glare here. But look at the different options we have here. The sparrow, chipmunk, gray mouse, red-winged blackbird, and frog. Really, really cool. Highly collectible. You know, I run across these quite a bit on eBay, but you know, I still haven't bought one yet because they're just so darn expensive. But I'd love to find some of these in the wild and actually fish them. But just a really neat, collectible, old school, lifelike look. I mean, I love it. The sparrow, I mean, just the detail on some of these is just outstanding. The chipmunk is really cool as well too. But I want to make sure that you guys saw that. Just a little bit of an innovation there for 1982. So I think we've looked through enough. We've talked about enough. We know the history. So I think you know what we got to do next. We got to catch a fish. Let's go. All right, let's take a look at the setups that we got here real quick, and we'll start with this bait caster setup that I have. And this is the larger jitterbug, and I got this in yellow. As a matter of fact, that is one of the top 3 most popular colors ever. And it goes in order of black, frog, and yellow. And approximately 20 million of those have been sold, which I'm assuming there's got to be at least 20 million bass caught on these colors right here. So absolutely phenomenal. Now, with any kind of top water bait caster setup, I like to have braid, and just make sure you just ease it in. You don't have to just go really fast, although that will make the action a lot more erratic. You don't need to do that. Just a nice, easy retrieval, and let this bait do the work. That's what it's meant to do. You don't need to really do anything, although you can pop a little bit, stop it, and then keep it going or whatever else. It's not a popping lure. You just reel, it'll go. The next one that I have right here is the spinning reel setup with a smaller jitterbug. Same thing. You know, just a nice, easy retrieval, and this thing will do the work. So I say without further ado, let's toss them out there and let's see which one of these 2 work. Now, like I said, I'm not fishing at the probably appropriate time of day. It's probably a little bit too hot and a little bit too much sunlight, but I think that the water's a little calmer. The action that they're going to see on the water, because the water's calm, it's going to rile them up. It's going to get them, you know, pretty worked up. So let's go find a fish. Now I got to show you guys the action in the water. It's absolutely outstanding. This thing, just the erratic motion of it, the kind of bloop, 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 bloop noise that it makes. But let's see here. So we're going to do this one-handed here. A little difficult. Let's try it. Okay. Look at that. That's going to drive a fish absolutely crazy to see that. Sorry. One-handed camera work here. Hey, what's not to love about that? That's why it's been successful for 9 decades. Not exactly what we were going for, but probably one of the most aggressive bluegills out there. So nice job. Heck, this bluegill is about the size of this jitterbug. But that just goes to show this thing catches everything. I've caught catfish, bass, you name it off these. It's just a fantastic little lure. So let me get this guy unhooked and we'll throw him back in. But that's going to do it for this episode of Angling Archaeology, where we unearth the good old days. I want to thank you all for watching, liking, subscribing. If you haven't done so already, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And hey, next time you get a chance, stick a jitterbug out there on the water. You know, it's summertime, you know, get those fish dancing, you know. So till next time, folks, we'll see you out there. Thanks for watching Angling Archaeology, where we unearth the good old days. Don't forget to like and subscribe.